Welcome to the Villa Times, a nostalgic look back at all things Aston Villa from two fans who've been supporting the club for over 30 years. We want to just share a few memories, maybe a few historical facts with you. My name's Phil Maiden. As I say, I've been a fan for over 30 years. I first went to watch Aston Villa in 1989. It feels like a long time ago now. And I just love everything Aston Villa. I've worked as a sports journalist, covered Villa in the past. Don't do that anymore because I want a bit more time to watch the club and get embroiled as a fan, really. But yeah, it's great to be here, and this is the first episode, so we hope you like what you hear.
Yeah, great. Welcome, folks. My name's Ivan McDowell. Been supporting Villa for a similar amount of time as Phil, and in fact, we, in our younger days, had a season ticket together in the lower Holt. So great to be sharing this podcast with Phil. Some of you might be aware I've recently written a book about Villa called Only the Real Thing, which covers the 94 and 96 Coca-Cola Cup wins. Probably gives a good sense of the sort of way I view Villa, in the sense of that historic and nostalgic sense. And I think we really thought that this was an opportunity for us to kind of get some content out there related to Villa that was a little bit different to what is some already great stuff that exists around sort of the present day squad. So this will very much be more of a looking backwards, but with some nods, I think, to the present day as well. And hopefully some of the things that we talk about will very much relate to what's happening on the pitch at the moment. Is that a fair summary, Phil?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we're starting this first episode on the FA Cup, aren't we? Which
we
are. To be honest, I'm always a bit wary of the FA Cup. It's given me so much hope in life, and then it's pulled the rug from under me numerous times. But I don't know. I just feel like this season there's something about Aston Villa where we're not satisfied, are we, as fans, with the way we're playing in the league in general. If we're being honest, a lot of the league games we've all felt a little bit kind of flat. Like we're not playing kind of with the rhythm that we had for quite a long period during last season. But there's something magical about the cup games. Like I just feel like with the Champions League as well, it's the same thing. I just feel like Villa are set up to go and grind out the results when it really matters. And I think you look at who's left in the cup this season, and it just makes you feel like this is the opportunity.
There's real reasons for optimism, aren't there? And I think that Preston away in an FA Cup quarter final is not by no means a gimme, but I think that it is an opportunity, and if we. I would have preferred a home game probably against anyone else. But if we were going to be drawn away, you'd probably have picked Preston to play. I think it's we've taken it seriously this season ultimately, haven't we? Which has borne fruit. And I think if you look back at the three games so far, they've all been sort of slightly special or different for a reason. So I think if you think about the West Ham game, obviously was the 150th anniversary game, the black kit, the Tifo, all that sort of thing. The Spurs game was Rashford and Asensio, kind of their first introduction, them coming off the bench, that sort of thing. I think Friday was really special as well. I thought the Anwar kind of outpouring of love for Anwar El Ghazi was interesting. So I think it just, there's an element where it feels kind of like a special campaign, and I think that Preston has the capacity to do that as well, because two really historic clubs, aren't they? Founder members, of the Football League. I think, you told me off stage about a fact related to the double as well.
I did. Let's just chuck a fact bomb out there early on, shall we? So Preston won the first double. Don't ask me what year it was because I'm going to get it wrong. But they won the first double. We won the second one in 1896-97. And on the way to winning the FA Cup, which we beat Everton in the final 3-2, we actually beat Preston in the quarter final, which is
written in the stars.
Yeah. But interestingly, because I've only ever kind of thought that we've had three replays once, which was like Everton in the League Cup final in 77.
Yeah.
this was one where we had 3 replays, and we drew 1-1 away at Preston, and then, unless the historical facts I've looked at are wrong, we then played 2 home games. We drew the first one 0-0, and then the second one 3-2. So,
so the second replay was at home as well.
Okay. Yeah, just a little bit of history for you there. So we're channeling our inner 1896-97, although we didn't play Everton in the final because they're out. But we're hoping that this could be a sign in some weird way, aren't we?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've had a hell of a gap, haven't we? So obviously,
I'll cling on to anything, to be honest, Ivan. I mean, I'm on my 3rd lucky mug in less than a year. And it's not even lucky. I mean, the last few times I've drunk out of it before a match, because I always have a swig out the lucky mug the day of a match. And obviously, recently, I mean, Friday worked pretty well, but before then, there's been a few examples like Crystal Palace last Tuesday, where it really didn't go very well.
Clearly didn't. Brilliant.
Yeah. But hold on to anything you can. So I'm holding on to 1896-97.
Absolutely. Well, no, and those historic precedents are good. But yeah, so quarterfinals. So obviously we won the FA Cup in 1957. Since then we've had 12 quarterfinals, of which we've won half and lost half. So again, if we're looking for some decent historical precedents, after winning the 57 FA Cup, we played 2 quarterfinals in consecutive years, 59 and 60. In 59 we beat Burnley, and in 60 we beat Preston. So there you go, another Preston quarterfinal in the FA Cup. It all went a little bit downhill then. So we then lost a sequence of games. So 1962 lost to Spurs. 1977 lost to Manchester United, no great surprise. 1980 lost away at West Ham, and 1983 lost away at Arsenal. So like a real string of bad results. And then probably just about the first one I can vaguely remember is 1990, and we lost 3-0 away at Oldham, which kind of foreshadowed a bit. If you remember when we came second in the Premier League, we really fucked it up against Oldham, didn't we? So I guess that's some not so good historical precedent, but that's just about the first one I remember. I think Chris Price scored an own goal, and I vaguely remember that it was around the time we were about to sign Tony Cascarino, which probably deserves no further comment either. Although I don't think we had by that point, because he didn't play in that game.
Because he signed during that season, didn't he? He signed before the end of that.
Yeah. So I think he signed around about that period, but of the loss to Oldham. What's the first one? What's the first quarterfinal you remember?
I mean, that's my first. That's a vague memory for me, because that's the first season I went to go and start watching Villa. And to be honest, Tony Cascarino memories do flood back in terms of the amount of frustration there used to be in the stands with him playing up top. It was a bit of a frustrating period as a Villa fan. Weirdly though, like finishing second in the league with Ian Olney and Ian Ormondroyd in the team. No disrespect to those guys, but they weren't players that then went on to kind of like go and make it at other big clubs, were they? Because we must reflect Villa were and are a big club. We're not going to go and say they aren't, but their careers didn't go on an upward trajectory after Aston Villa. So it was a bit of a strange time to be finishing second in the league then. But
and then obviously losing a quarter-final in the FA Cup.
I know, what a lost opportunity, because to be honest, we were not going to win the league that year because Liverpool were unbelievable. Well, they were like strong, but losing to Oldham in the quarter-final 3-0 just frustrates me a little bit. And when you look at it, and again, no disrespect, but the likes of Neil Redfern, Rick Holden, and Chris Price, you just wonder.
Paul Warhurst as well, I seem to remember as well, when he was before he became a striker. Anyway, so next was 92. I think we probably both remember the 92 quarter-final in the FA Cup, which was another loss, unfortunately, which was away at Anfield to Liverpool. Of course, Villa wore this kit that I'm wearing.
That one was on TV, wasn't it? I remember
Again,
that one was on TV.
Yeah, it was televised. Yeah,
and
which
we
I
all got
vividly remember watching.
Yeah, if I remember, we had the yellow kit on, which we only wore once. Is that right? Did we only wear it once? Or
I think I did. I used to think we only wore it twice. So in that game, in the Liverpool game, and we definitely wore it away at Nottingham Forest. But
right.
recently, as part of some of my work for the book, someone told me that we'd worn it in an away game at Crystal Palace as well, which I heads up have no recollection of. What I do know is that whether it's 2 or 3, we definitely never won in this kit. Which is obviously a small evidence base, but but yeah, it's an iconic kit, isn't it? I love it. It's one of the few kits that I even own anymore.
I mean, maybe that's another podcast episode, third kits, because we've had a pretty bad record in them until this season, and actually we've done all right in our third kit this season. But
absolutely, and I think that's kind of why 92 in the loss against Liverpool, although it was a loss, the fact that this kit sort of gives it an extra edge of memory, possibly. And I was fascinated. I was looking at the side and loved the fact that Mark Blake played in the side as well. Didn't play a huge amount for Villa at the time, so was obviously, I think, employed at right back because then remember Darius Kabici, he came on as a sub for Blake as well, which I just thought was like a great kind of niche bit of Villa memory, Blake and Kabici playing at right back. But that team, I mean, to me, that team is the beginning of like the iconic, really sort of big Ron teams, so you've got your Stauntons, Teal, McGrath, Tony Daly, so really kind of iconic kind of stuff. But obviously a disappointing result, although again, I mean, there's not a lot of kind of clips out there anymore of it, but I do seem to remember Gary Parker having a chance towards the end that could have maybe sent it to a replay. But yeah,
am I right in thinking as well that we all got excited in that game with a youngster called David Hughes, Welsh international? And I think
I don't think so. I think you're mixing your memories there.
Oh, my memories getting mixed. Why's that? Oh dear.
I mean, I do remember that. I have I do recall that. I feel that possibly that was 4 years on, maybe in the '96 game.
Well, if anyone knows, can they tell us? Because our memories are getting a bit that one.
Because the team was pretty much, as I say, Big Ron's team. I mean, Cyril Regis played. It was quite an attacking Villa lineup because Atkinson, Daly, York, and Regis all played.
Right.
So, fairly kind of attacking, and Steve Froggatt was on the bench as well.
Right.
Going back to the kit, what I find weird is that you probably remember we played Swindon in the round before, and Froggatt scored. I think probably his first goal for Villa. Obviously Swindon playing red, Liverpool playing red, but the Swindon game we didn't wear the yellow kit. We wore that white and black with the black and blue stripe on it. So I'm not quite sure what the thinking of was wearing the yellow one, but anyway.
Bring us good luck, Ivan, and obviously it didn't, and then it didn't. And it didn't again when they binned it.
Never to be seen again. But 92 was obviously another loss. So Michael Thomas. I always found it strange at the time because he'd obviously scored that really iconic goal for Arsenal like 3 years earlier to win the title at Anfield, didn't he? And then joined Liverpool. But then actually post 92, so we are, although we have had minimal quarterfinals, I think I'm right in saying that we haven't lost an FA Cup quarterfinal since. So we've had 1996, 2000, 2010, and 2015. So a pretty small evidence base. But again, something to maybe be quite positive about. So
my memory is better on those, if I'm being honest. I mean,
96. I mean, because that was again without it's obviously that period is included in the book. I mean, 96 was an iconic season, wasn't it? I mean, obviously we won the League Cup, finished 4th in the league, and got to we ended up getting to the semi-finals of the FA Cup, where we lost to Liverpool. But the quarterfinal, Remember that?
Yeah, you chucked me a little nugget through
A
a
picture.
picture you sent me the other day, and you were testing my memory on that one. And to be honest, until you sent me that picture, I hadn't remembered. It triggered my memory on it because I hadn't remembered the player who kind of appeared from nowhere and then scored a crucial goal in that game.
His only goal for Villa, I
Yeah,
believe. Franz Carr, yeah, Franz Carr. So yeah, Villa played Forest, didn't we, in the 1996 quarter final.
what can
Won
you
1-0.
how many games did he actually play for us? Because I don't think it was many, was it?
Handful, 3, I think, 3 or 4. Yeah, I mean, he was kind of brought in. I mean, part of the reason he played in that 1996 quarter final was that Villa were kind of beset with injuries and suspension. So I think it was a bit of a last resort for Brian Little. But it was actually a really good goal, right? Kind of sort of thrashed it in from the edge of the area. And of course, he used to play for Forest as well, so it was a bit of a strange one there. But I think it was very rarely seen again, Carr, after that. But again, I think it's really interesting to me from a sort of nostalgic point of view that when you're thinking about Villa's history and the twists and turns, is that even someone like Franz Carr has a part to play in that narrative. And I think no matter how big or small a player's contribution, that is really, really important to the overall kind of story of Aston Villa. And without him that day, who knows what might have happened, I guess. And they wore another iconic kit, the blue AST.
The blue AST, which was more successful when we played Arsenal in the League Cup.
In the League Cup, the semi-final.
Probably for another day, though, aren't we? We've got to save up some content here. That was a famous kit. And just I know we've kind of like fast forwarded to like our more fresh memories, but going back before, you were talking about what happened after the 57 FA Cup. I've got a little fact nugget for you here. We in 56-57, when we won the FA Cup, we played Burnley in the quarter-final.
Okay. And who Preston beat in the round before.
Yeah, and in 58-59, we beat Burnley in the quarter-final. And the interesting fact is that in both of those quarterfinals, we needed a replay to beat them. So we played Burnley twice in 2 quarterfinals, and we needed a replay to win both of those games. And the other thing, just a little fact nugget for you, going back a bit further, I think my favourite Villa season would have possibly been 1912-13, because in the FA Cup that season, we won it, and we won 3 consecutive rounds, 5-0. Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
That would have been a good time to be alive, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. Yeah. What I wouldn't take for 5 goals.
The World War I was going to happen a couple of years, a year later. But actually, in terms of FA Cup football, for Aston Villa fans, that would have been quite a nice time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we need to go back to our own memories, don't we? So we've talked about 92, 93, 95, 96. 95, 96 for me, that FA Cup season, although I do remember it, it's just completely overshadowed by all the other great stuff that was going on at the time. And actually, I kind of feel like as a fan at the time, I remember being disappointed that we lost the semi-final. But actually, the League Cup was the final of the League Cup would have been around then. So
yeah, we'd already won it. So I think that was a comfort, wasn't it? Essentially, and I think that, and again, it was quite a good Liverpool side who Robbie Fowler in that era used to score against us all the time. I think he got 2 in the semi. But yeah, I think that, again, I think it's part of the memories, as I said, around those kind of niche things around Franz Carr and in the 96 quarterfinal, another player that perhaps we don't talk about very much, Ricardo Skimmaker, also started in that game. Remember him?
Yeah. Classic utility player, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? And he sort of quite often filled in for McGrath, or maybe played right back, bit of centre midfield. because Villa did have quite a lot of injuries, I think, at that time. And I think it was, I guess, partly because they were playing so many games in terms of the the League Cup campaign, the FA Cup campaign, and obviously competing in the league. So yeah, it would. I think still goes down as a really good season, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. If anyone listening, by the way, has got any memories of what we're talking about, please share them, because we'd like to share them back with the rest of the audience in the next episode. So if you want to write in, just you can see our Twitter handles on the screen. So just drop me or Ivan a message, and we'll certainly share them with the audience, because we want to get people sharing their own stories a bit as well. You don't just want to hear from us all the time, so we'd like to hear from you too. So yeah, I suppose we fast forward on then, Ivan, because 95, 96 we're done, and then 99, 2000. Well, I want to go. Like, there's good moments from this season, but I don't know whether I want to go over it. I mean,
well, I think we've got to talk about the quarter final. I mean, the quarter final was a bit of a
quarter final was fine. Yeah, that was all right. I just remember.
It was just what game next. Yeah, I mean, I think I think that probably that FA Cup campaign is probably more defined by the round before the quarter final, isn't it? With Carbone's hat trick at Villa Park against Leeds, and Paul Merson cracking his head open on the post, being covered in blood. But yeah, the quarter final also was the Benito Carbone show, really, for good and bad reasons. So we were away at Everton. Yeah, Steve Stone scored the first one. Probably my favourite ever bold Villa player, in solidarity to my own hair loss. And then Benito Carbone scored the second in what was a 2-1 win. But Carbone got sent off as well towards the end. And two bookings, one for refusing to go away from a free kick, and one for throwing the ball away. So
double yellow carding there.
Well, and I can't imagine, having met John Gregory a couple of times and heard a lot of his interviews, I can't imagine he was particularly impressed with that. But yeah, it was kind of a bit of a like after the Lordsmere show of the Leeds game, but another important game. And I mean, Carbone, we are currently subjected to some loan players, aren't we? And he was certainly one that people fell in love with over that campaign. So I think the Everton goal was his fifth goal of the campaign, because he'd scored in the third round as well against Darlington as well. So he really, he kind of set that campaign on fire, didn't he? Really?
Yeah, you kind of, when he scored that absolute, like, well, I don't know how you describe it. I mean, like that goal from distance against Leeds. That absolutely, was it a howitzer? Was it it was more of a chip?
More like howitzer,
wasn't it? That was, but you're right. That did light the touch paper. All of a sudden, you're like, are we on a cup run here? Are we going somewhere? And beating Leeds at the time was a tricky achievement in itself. They were a good team. Everton,
100%.
Away from home at Everton's always a tough game. And you just kind of felt like we were going somewhere with it. And even in the semis, when we went and won on penalties, I remember being at Wembley. I was in the end where the penalties were being taken, and was it Dean Holsworth skied one over the bar?
I think that's right, isn't it? Yeah, for Bolton. It was a dire game, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a dire game, yeah. And you just thought, we're going somewhere here. We're going to win this FA Cup. And I remember, I know we're not meant to be talking about finals too much, but I will share this memory. I remember listening to the radio in a friend's car on the way down to Wembley for the final, and it just felt like, almost like all of the media wanted us to just do something special that day. Everyone wanted us to win, because I kind of feel like it was almost like we're being treated like the underdog against Chelsea that day. And they'd got some decent players, as we know at the time. And then the final was just flat, absolutely flat. And we didn't show up. And it was just such an underwhelming day. And that stuck with me for quite a long time, because it just left me feeling like the FA Cup, it's just not there. in my lifetime, the one thing that I'm not optimistic about as an Aston Villa fan generally is the FA Cup. It just has hurt me too many times. And that
and it was that campaign was, well, and the fact it then took us a decade to reach another quarter final.
Yeah.
So 2010 under Martin O'Neill, which is, I mean, all right, they weren't great years, but that's quite a long time, I think, in terms of where we were at in terms of the 90s.
We had a bit of a spell where we just gave up on the FA Cup. It's like, well, we're going to get knocked out again, so let's not worry about it. And as you say, I mean, not getting to a quarter final for 10 years, a club that's won it 7 times, that's pretty poor, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you remember about 2010?
2010, I remember, because that was an away game, and I remember watching it on TV. And I remember that Reading, because Reading took a 2-goal lead, didn't they, just before half time?
Yeah. Which was a shock. I mean, they were in the Championship, weren't they? So it was a shock. I mean, it was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and then of course, big John Carew sorts it all out. Hat
trick for Carew, two penalties as well, wasn't it?
That's not my favourite John Carew memory, but he produced the goods, didn't he? And he turned.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that was a great Villa side. I think that he kind of blew hot and cold a little bit, didn't he? But that was an important hat trick, as I say, 2 penalties. Ashley Young with the first, who is a personal kind of favourite of me and my sons. In both spells for me, and just the second spell for my son. But yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I really liked that Villa team. And if you look at it now, and it's you got Brad Friedel in goal. So this was the quarter final team. Brad Friedel, Richard Dunn, Carlos Cuellar, Neil Warnock, Collins,
Stephen
Downing, Young.
Warnock back, Ivan.
Say again?
I don't think it was Neil Warnock playing left back.
No, not Neil. Steve. Yeah, that was my favourite Villa left back was Neil Warnock. Yeah, good shout, Stephen. And then that I just love this: Downing, Young, Milner, and Petrov.
Yeah, that was a really, really solid team, wasn't it?
Yeah, time? I mean, what a midfield, because I mean that was by that point Milner was playing in the middle, wasn't he, with Petrov. And then a big strike force of obviously John Carew got the hat trick that day, and Emil Heskey. Yeah.
And
lest we forget.
I mean, you talk about that midfield. Unfortunately, we didn't have Gareth Barry at that point because he was oozing class the year before. Although, little story for you there. Someone gave me a signed Gareth Barry shirt, and when he left, I put it in the bin.
Oh, really? You were that upset?
Yeah, that hurt by him leaving, because he was like, captain. He was kind of like central to everything, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. See, that's it. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, again, stories for another day, isn't it? But probably not the one that hurt me. I always used to. I mean, going back to the maybe 2000 team that beat Everton in the quarterfinal, then lost to Chelsea in the final. Hugo, Southgate.
Oh,
both left to win things.
At
Middlesbrough. I mean, Hugo, God rest his soul. But yeah, those were tough. And I think it's hard, isn't it? I guess, we're all affected by these things in different ways.
I know. Well, I do apologise to any Villa fans who are offended by me throwing a shirt in the bin, but if I'm being honest, I've just been there to look at it. So, But yeah, no.
Before we move on to the last quarter final, so you've come up with some interesting stats. So one that I managed to find was that when we beat Reading in that FA Cup quarter final, it ended a rather bizarre statistic of Martin O'Neill having never won a game as Villa manager in March. There you go.
Did it? Because March was always the worst period to be a Villa fan under Martin O'Neill, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that was. I mean, when did he join? 2006. So it's quite a long period, isn't it? That it took for him.
3 years. It was the annual capitulation, wasn't it? Champions League.
So that was So that quarter final against Reading was the first time O'Neill had won a game as Villa manager in March. So there we go. Yeah. But we didn't have to wait another 10 years at least for a quarter final, did we? It was only 5 under the majestic Tim Sherwood.
Yeah,
in 2015.
Yeah, and this was I didn't really see it coming that season that we would go on a cup run. We were a very up and down team. I mean, obviously threatened a little bit by relegation that season, and then more threatened and culminating in doom the following one. But you wouldn't have put Villa down to go and get to an FA Cup final that season, I don't think. I mean, I know we had a few little tricks up our sleeve, like Benteke, for example. And on his day, he was an absolute giant, wasn't he? So, always wax lyrical about a fully fit Christian Benteke. But
we played every game at home as well, which I think, in retrospect, obviously kind of helped.
It's like we played every game at home, got really confident, managed to pull off a bit of a kind of adrenaline performance against Liverpool, and then reverted to type in the final, which we won't mention. Where I spent probably I didn't spend enough time in Wetherspoons that day, put it that way. I spent too much time in the stadium. That was, I mean, obviously that was a local derby as well.
Yeah, West Brom. I'll put you on the spot. Scorers.
Delph and Scott Sinclair.
Yeah, Scott Sinclair. Well, I always kind of sort of liked. He was a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, but yeah, no, it was a bit, and it was. I mean, it was again big televised game at Villa Park. Very kind of raucous atmosphere. Villa had beaten West Brom in the league a couple of days previously, which was arguably, I think Sherwood said at the time, was probably more the priority, because it meant that they put themselves in a position to stay safe in the league. I think there was a bit of rancor from that, wasn't there? And then once again, West Brom fans, bit as would happen in the playoffs, years later, got annoyed with the sending off, throwing seats onto the pitch, and then Villa fans invaded the pitch, and it all got a little bit
because the TV coverage just kind of went off from talking about the game to talking about the crowd trouble, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was really. I mean, I think I do remember. it was it felt like a kind of poisonous atmosphere, and I think it was. I mean, Claudio Jakob had been sent off for West Brom, and I think that was the spark, and I think it was only 1-0 at that point, and then when Sinclair scored the second, it just became a little bit poisonous, really.
And that's
another really good win in a quarter final.
Second time, just so you know, that we played West Brom in an FA Cup quarter final, because you'll obviously remember the other one. Testing your memory here.
No.
1923-24.
Oh, obviously. Silly me.
That's one where we got to the final and lost as well. So both times we played West Brom in the FA Cup quarterfinal, we've lost the final. So there you go. Let's not get them in an FA Cup quarterfinal again.
Our favourite son, Jack Grealish, was sent off at the end of that game as well.
Yeah. So
for as I recall it, diving. I'm sure it was. I think it was probably 2 yellows, to be fair, but I think I'm absolutely sure the second yellow was for diving.
So it was kind of a sign of what was to come then.
Possibly.
I mean, let's not be critical of Jack, because obviously we've got lots of great memories of him. But
of course, well, in that cup run,
So where he started to grow into potentially becoming like a regular first teamer, wasn't it? Really, I mean, a couple more years.
The Liverpool semi-final was probably his coming of age, wasn't it? So that takes us up to the last quarterfinals, so 2015. So that's not
any other players that you'd pick out from those eras that just give you great memories as a Villa fan?
Yeah, I think for me, probably the '96 side is still always, Hugo Ehiagi and Taylor, really kind of iconic Villa players. I think the 2015 side, obviously Benteke, a young Jack, won't be popular with lots of people, but Fabian Delph was a fantastic player for Villa. Although it didn't end well. So I think there was, there are lots of things that you can kind of track back and have really fond memories about, even if perhaps the subsequent memories kind of try to corrupt that a little bit. But yeah, there you go, Villa and quarterfinals.
I'm glad as well, by the way, that you threw Gary Parker in there, because he was kind of one of my favourite.
Incredibly underrated, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, one of my favourite underrated Villa players is the way I'd describe it. He was like a bit of an all-action attacking midfielder, and I've always enjoyed watching him play for Villa.
And I think he suffered a little bit under Atkinson, because they brought Andy Townsend. So after Villa had finished second in that first Premier League season, they brought in Andy Townsend, who essentially replaced Parker, and I think that was probably not a lot of argument around that, in the sense of the importance Townsend would have for subsequent seasons. But I think he was a bit unfortunate, because he tended to contribute goals as well, didn't he, Parker? And
yeah.
In the end, I think would just had to go and seek some football elsewhere. But yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I think that's that when you look back at all those FA Cup quarterfinals since winning it, those 12, 50-50 kind of split. So let's see what Preston brings.
Well, it's our 150th anniversary year. Obviously, everyone wants us to win it, apart from the supporters of teams that are still in it. And Birmingham and Blues, of course, and probably West Brom fans
and Wolves and Coventry,
and it keeps going. Yeah, but I suppose it's 68 years. It's about time we actually did something. Also, as well, I always kind of think about that kind of like around the 2010 period. We were going to Wembley like quite regularly between over about a 10-year period then. And it feels like it's long overdue that we get back to Wembley, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, it does. I mean, although, it does. I mean, certainly in the FA Cup. Weirdly, it wasn't a million years ago, was it, that we were there under Dean Smith? But
Samatta with a goal, yeah.
But again, that it's interesting how much that kind of sticks in the memory, really. I mean, I think for me that campaign was more about the semi-final. Leicester at Villa Park, Trez on the back post. But it does feel overdue, and I think we've got a really good opportunity. And when you look back at all those FA Cup quarterfinals and the history and the players, I'm sure that we'll look back on the Preston game in the future in some way, and have a mixture of fond and perhaps some negative memories as well, because who knows what will happen, Phil.
No, well, exactly. Well, look, I totted it up. We've had 18 quarterfinal wins and 8 defeats. So we've got to hope we make it 19 wins. And then we've got to hope that, based on the history we've shared with everyone, especially for the last 68 years, that we actually somehow don't go and mess it up in the semis or the final, because that's the pattern that we've basically concluded with here, isn't it? So yeah, there's work to do for Villa, but in Unai we trust, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Big games in between that point, but looking forward to another FA Cup quarterfinal.
So anyone listening, if you've got any memories, love to hear some stories about you being at any of these games that we've talked about. We didn't really touch on some of those anecdotes from ourselves there. I mean, some of the games I remember being at, and some of them I remember being in the pub or watching from home. But if you've got any of your own stories, do get in touch. And we're gonna do some more episodes coming up. So I know one of the things we were talking about was doing something around the Champions League. So we're going to be watching with interest over the 2 quarter-final games. So we'll have something more for you then. If you've got any suggestions as well for any subjects you'd like us to go and look into, and if you've got any specific things you want us to research, we could have a look, couldn't we, Ivan?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're sort of thinking of seasons or players or managers or certain themes, and I think that it's a good opportunity to relive some of our past.
Yeah, well, get involved in the conversation. We'd love to hear from you, and thank you very much for listening to our first episode of the Villa Times.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Hope to see you all soon. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.